Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Dear Editor, our ongoing conversation series about writing and editing and publishing topics. This morning, or rather this afternoon, I guess it's afternoon now, our presenters are going to be Erwin Udor and Ashley Villarreal, going to present to you on preparing for a manuscript for publication. So I'm going to turn it over to them and take it away.
All right, thank you, Erica. I'm going to get things started. We're going to move to our first slide, and we're going to start with a poll. So we have a question for you. Please drop your responses in the chat box. So our question for you is, what is the most difficult part about starting the writing process? So put those in the chat for us and let us know what are the challenges you face at this stage. Starting, what to begin with, blank page, pinning down the topic, focusing in on the main topic, organization. So it looks like a lot of just that brainstorming, like the ideas, nailing down an idea, creating the research question. Oh, good one. What section to begin on? Okay, so keep sharing those. If you have more, I can definitely identify with these responses. Hopefully, though, in the next few slides, Ashley can give you some tips to help you overcome these challenges. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashley, and we're going to move to the next slide and hopefully help you get started.
Good morning, everyone. So as a lot of people mentioned, one of the hardest parts of getting started with a manuscript is often generating those ideas, narrowing in on a topic, and that's kind of the first step, and often overwhelming. And a lot of times reaching out for help is a really good way to overcome that hurdle. So that could be talking to colleagues or a more senior researcher, reaching out to the librarian, help with a literature search to identify any gaps in knowledge. You could think about some of the limitations of any recent studies that you read and found interesting and relevant to your research, and kind of pinpointing those weaknesses, I guess, in the field is a good way to address that first step. And then once we've identified the gap in knowledge and the purpose of the article that you want to write, you should then think about the audience that you're going to write to, because that will help you narrow in on a journal. And selecting a good journal is really important, and reducing any unnecessary wasted time or applying to an inappropriate journal. Will help build your reputation, all of these things. The librarians can also help do that, but Arwen will talk about that a little bit more later. Once you've identified a journal, you can and should look at the author guidelines, and that can also help with the organization. Like some people were mentioning is a struggle in starting writing, and sometimes journals have super helpful instructions that are really detailed on how to organize things, and sometimes they're more open, but it can help with that part. And then once you've done all of those things, we just want to gather all of our materials so they're all in one place, and we're not having to start and stop writing to track down more information. And kind of going back to that purpose statement I briefly mentioned before, sometimes when I get stuck in a writer's block, I like to write out my purpose statement and stick it on my computer with a sticky note, either virtually or a physical sticky note, and that kind of helps me reorient my ideas sometimes if I'm struggling with just getting something down or facing that blank page, I'll just write and then I'll fix everything up later. But just getting that momentum going can sometimes help as well. And now let's go to the next slide so Arwen can talk a little bit about identifying a journal.
Okay, so as Ashley mentioned, choosing a journal is a key step in this beginning stage. And I want you to be aware that the library makes several journal selection tools available to help you work through this stage. So we're listing a few here that you might consider. Some of these you might know. The first is something called the Manuscript Matcher. And this is a product from Clarivate. They're the makers of EndNote and other cool resources. And this lets you copy and paste your manuscript's title and abstract into its system. And then it will suggest journals based on a text matching search. And then next, journal citation reports. I'm sure many of you in the session have heard of this, commonly referred to as JCR. Using journal citation reports will let you learn more about a journal's performance, so including the all-important impact factor, total citations count, and many, many other journal-level metrics. And then there's another tool I'll mention called Spy Hub. This is Scholarly Publishing Information Hub. This is a product of Vanderbilt Medical Center, and it provides prospective authors with information on the quality, the rigor, and the transparency of journals. And it's journals specifically in biomedicine, health, nursing, and the basic life sciences. And so you can search by topic or by specific journal name. So please be aware that those tools are there for you, and we're sharing links to these things in the handout that goes along with this session. And I'm going to give it back to Ashley.
So now that we've gotten the initial stages, we've talked about them, we'll talk about actually sitting down and writing your manuscript. Something that some people have difficulties with is staying on track or just writing, getting the writing done. And something that I like to do to help combat that is creating a writing schedule. So start with the date that you wish to submit something by or you wish to publish something by and just work backwards. Think about how long it'll take you to write certain sections, to edit, to revise, listen to the editors, and then you'll have a timeline and some deadlines, which can be an incentive to get things done is when you have deadlines. And you want to try to aim to write something every day. Like I mentioned before, you just want to keep that momentum going. Sometimes it's hard to get back on after you've fallen off. And to expedite your time and to so things can move along, I suggest formatting your article as you go. Especially if the journal requires specific formatting guidelines, it can help give you a day off, like a little break from writing, but you're still working on the manuscript. It also just saves time in the long run. And then finally, a really common format is MRAD. And so some people were saying that they have problems with certain sections of the manuscript. And while manuscripts are often formatted in this MRAD format, you don't have to write in that style, that structure. I would pick this part that you feel the most confident about. So if you feel really confident about the methods, start with that one and then work your way to other sections. And again, just starting writing can sometimes help get over that writer's block. And I'm just going to briefly mention the key aspects that you should discuss in each of these sections. So in the introduction, we're going to explain what led to your study and the general experimental approach. You're going to explain why the study is exciting and important, and you're definitely going to mention any research questions that you may have. You shouldn't overwhelm with a lot of results or discussion, but you can mention them briefly. And then we'll have the methods. So this should just be discuss what you did in enough detail that someone could replicate your study. You want to make sure you have statistical analyses or mention how they were done. And in the catalog number for chemicals and equipment and manufacturers if they're required by the journals. And then we have our results. You're just explaining what the results were. We're not discussing them or explaining their importance. This is where you'll often include figures and tables, of course. And a good tip and a good reminder for this section is that the figures and tables should complement the results. They should not replace them. And then we have the discussion. So this should elaborate on the results. It should explain why the findings are important and interesting. In the last paragraph or two, you should mention any limitations of your study, which is kind of what you'll look at when you're looking for purpose statements and what you want to write on, which we talked about a little bit earlier. And so we have a quick poll really quick. I think we can turn the slide. And then, so what is a common mistake when writing an abstract? Okay, I'll give just a few more seconds and then we'll discuss the results. Okay, so I don't know if everyone can see the results, but it looks like most people said not presenting key results. And then next we have keeping it brief, then stating the problem, and then clear and concise writing. So a good abstract will provide a concise summary of what happened. We can think of it as a very short paper. So a good abstract is going to state our problems. It is going to be brief, and as all scientific writing, it is going to be clear and concise. So oftentimes, very key results will be missing from an abstract. The key takeaways, I guess, if you will. And we want to make sure that those are in there because those are the most important part of the paper normally. You can think of the abstract as you're writing it almost as a sales tool to convince the reader to read your article, which the key point is the sales tool. And then I suggest working on the title after everything is done. And the title can almost be viewed as a very, very condensed version of the abstract. You want to summarize the essence of the article. You want to make sure that it is persuasive, and you want to show how your research is different from others in the field. Remember, when you're doing a literature search and you're skimming, hundreds maybe of articles, that title might be the only thing that someone reads. So we want to work hard on making it stick out in a good way. And then the final part of preparing your manuscript is just to sit down and write. So like I said earlier, sometimes word dumping or just writing and polishing it later can help. Creating those deadlines, maybe creating a writing group with some of your coworkers if y'all are working on manuscripts, something to keep accountability. And then part of that process is just revising. So you want to write as clearly and concisely as possible. It'll mean reading manuscripts again, sending the manuscript to the editing services team for their review. But it's a whole process. So I think we can now talk about submitting or writing classes that could help.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. I just want to confirm, everyone can see that we were getting some messages that some people couldn't see the slides. Can everyone see the slides okay now? Just give me an emoji or a, okay, great. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so again, I just want to make everyone aware that the library is here to assist you in the writing process. We offer writing classes in various formats. So you can enroll in an on-demand course. These classes are delivered through the study platform, and you can work through them at your own pace, and you can receive a certificate when you complete the course. You can also register for live sessions. You can find offerings on the library's calendar. We almost always deliver these classes by way of Zoom. And then finally, we have curated playlists on our YouTube channel of class recordings covering writing and publishing topics. And again, that's something that we'll share with you in the handout for the session. Okay, next slide, please. So Ashley walked us through the preparation stage, and now it's time to discuss submitting your manuscript. So first, I want to mention Authenticate, again, a tool that you guys might be familiar with. Authenticate is a software that detects text that is similar to already published text, right? And so it's plagiarism detection. Journals often use this software during the initial assessment of a paper. So you might want to consider running your own paper through this software to sort of get ahead of any problems that might pop up during that initial assessment. The library does provide access to Authenticate. We can set up an account for you. All you have to do is email us at RML-Help at MD Anderson, and we will establish the account and get that account information back to you. I also want to mention that once you have your account, you can customize to some extent your account for your papers. So you can set percentage thresholds, and you can even eliminate sections of your paper for Authenticate to not review if you think that it's going to be flagged for whatever reason, and there is a good reason why it is not plagiarism. Okay, next slide, please. So I also want to mention, as part of submitting your manuscript, cover letters. So some journals require a cover letter. So if your journal insists on a cover letter, we have some tips for you. Other journals may not, but you might still consider including one to make the case for your manuscript. A cover letter is an opportunity to make an impression and highlight the importance of your paper. You also want to make sure that you explain how the paper is a match for the journal's scope and its audience. In the session handout, we're going to provide some resources that give you some guidance about writing cover letters, and even give you some cover letter templates. Those are some publisher resources. But I also have a few other tips. So shout out to Joe if he's in the session. He's one of our senior scientific editors. And thank you for sharing these recommendations with me to share with you all. So here are some additional tips. Be professional in your writing. Try to keep it to one page. Address it to a specific person if you can, if you're able to identify a specific person. Present the title of the manuscript in the first paragraph of your cover letter. Explain again why the study would be of interest to the journal's readers. Be sure to include any statement explicitly requested in the author instructions. And then finally, don't suggest reviewers unless the journal asks you to do this, but do feel free to explain why certain reviewers might present a conflict. So for example, they're a competitor in your field. And those are tips. Thank you again to Joe for those. And next slide. And that is our advice for preparing your manuscript. We are very happy to take any questions that you might have.
For the library calendar on some of those live classes, would those links be included in whatever post-discussion material we're getting? How do we know how to sign up for those?
Yes, we can definitely include a link to the library's calendar so that you can see what we're offering and sign up. Definitely.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You guys are a quiet group. Or maybe it's just it's lunchtime. You've had your lunch and you're full and sleepy. Do any of you have any tips about anything that we've talked about that you can share with the group?
Okay, I think I'm going to venture into asking a question. This is Joaquin Buitrago. I am a nurse educator here at MD Anderson. My question is, I have a paper or pre-draft, let's put it that way. I have everything in my mind, but I started working on that and then I stop and redo some and stop it altogether. My idea relates to the implementation of the blood product warmer device in this type of organization. It's not a commonly used device across the nation or the country. So I think it's going to be a good impact. So my writing aims to the implementation of the processes of using the blood warmer device for the nursing profession. So I have some and I'm going to do some post survey in terms of the users. Are you familiar with this? Yes or no, in different areas and issues that are related to that. The main idea that I want to do if or any nurse in the across the nation, specifically or more so in the rural areas, they want to implement something like this. What are the steps, step by step, by doing some this type of implementation on a device like this? I have a little bit of a struggle. I wrote a little bit of the abstract. I'm doing this. Why are we doing this? And I have to present some background information. And then what we did is the writing. If needed be, how can I use your assistance in the writings, in other words, before I submit for a publication?
So I'll kind of get you started, I guess, but I'm gonna turn it over to an editor. But what comes to mind first for me is to take advantage of our editing services, and the editors can talk a little bit about what that involves.
Okay, and so that means, oh, you're going to talk. I'm sorry, Ashley.
Yeah, so do you have something completely written, or are you still in the writing process?
I am in the writing process only because the post survey, oh, I didn't explain that. Well, during the implementation, what I did is I did a pre-survey to gain their knowledge deficits. We did education, we developed a module, how to conduct this. We're doing the skills validation and so far and so on. And now we're getting ready to administer the post survey. So in order to show some data that what we did is pertinent. So yes, I'm still in the writing process.
Okay, so the editors do consultations, and so it might be better to reach out to our email, and we can get you with an editor who can help you more on a case-by-case basis. It sounds like maybe some guidance is what you're looking for. So I definitely recommend a consultation with an editor.
Got it. Okay. Yes, so the main email will work to do this. Okay, excellent. So I will be bugging you guys.
I had a quick question. Sorry, I was eating lunch, so didn't need anybody to see me chewing. But part of my interest, or really the focus of my academic interest, is really medical education and medical scholarship. And you do have specific journals that are dedicated to GME type education, but then a lot of other journals will have kind of educational components within them that you can submit to. And part of the things I struggle with is, obviously a lot of educational research is not necessarily, what's the best way to say, sexy. And so trying to figure out, which journal am I sending it to? A lot of times you almost have to plan to send it to a number of different types, either like straight up education journals or specialty journals with an education component to them, or an education kind of tab or focus. And I never really know what to do in the manuscript writing process then. Am I making kind of one master one that I tweak around as best as possible? Because it's, I guess, to the point of, tailor it to the particular journal. If you kind of already see yourself having to submit to a couple just because of the nature of educational research, how do you kind of mitigate that start-stop where you submit to a journal, right? Because this is the one you have in mind, and you formatted everything and edited it to that. And then they come back a couple months later and they're like, no. And then you have to start again. Like, do you have a couple of versions going to begin with, or how do you handle that process?
So I would do a master or a general one article, one file. And then I would make the changes, whether that's formatting. You might have to tweak some wording, add some more information, take out some information, save that as a new version. And then if it is rejected, then you have that original file to go back to, and then you can format it differently and stuff like that. Good thing with formatting is there's a fair number of journals that don't require specific formatting until like end stages. A lot of them will say, but some of that wording might have to be tweaked, and some of the information in the introduction might have to be tweaked to more closely align with that journal's purpose and goals, but I would definitely have a main file and then different versions.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like we have a hand raised. We have another question. Go ahead.
I have a question regarding the writing manuscript. As students, as a doctoral student, we have a lot of papers that we write, and it is not pre-adjusted according to the journals. Like, we just write our paper and, we get the feedback that it is a good paper to be published. So when we we have the choice of like submitting to one journal at a time, right? We cannot submit it to multiple journals. So does the library help us to find the right journal based on our paper, or how can we go by that? Is library helpful for that, or do we have to go through the editors again?
No, I think that's something definitely the library can help you with. As we mentioned earlier, we have lots of tools, and we're happy to meet with you to investigate those tools or help you learn how to use those tools. So yes, thank you. There's the slide. And what we have here on the slide are just a couple. We have many more. So yeah, definitely we can help you identify the journal or journals that are best suited for your paper.
Hey, can I say something? Can I say something too?
Go for it.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I'm a librarian too, and sometimes people do send me their manuscript and say, hey, I didn't get in the first journal or the one that I really, my first pick. So we can do a little analysis for you to select some other titles that match the scope of your journal. And then you can take it from there. So we can do a little bit of that for you.
So how do we send it? Like just to the library website, or what is the email that we have to go by? The personalized email to you, or how does that work? Because I'm new to this class, that's why I'm asking. Sorry.
You can email it. Larissa dropped it in the chat just now. So it's RML-Help at mdanderson.org. So you can send it to that address and the librarians will get it for sure.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Anybody else? Any last minute burning questions?
I saw that a couple of you asked about choosing a topic, and someone also asked specifically about about how to start a systematic review. For both of those, I'm going to direct you to the resources that we're going to have provided in the handout after this session today. We do actually have a page on the library site that's all about systematic reviews that I think will help answer that question as well. And certainly with any of these, you can always email RML-Help and we'll happily answer your specific question. For choosing a topic, I was also going to say, check out the writing and publishing scientific articles. We do have a whole self-paced course, and there's a section in there that's about getting started that I think can help you crystallize some of those things that I know are a real challenge when you're just trying to get started writing. So.
I think I just want to make a final comment that is not related to the developing of a writing, but is supportive of your colleagues, the librarians that are suffering political consequences right now in the lower level education. So if you ever encounter that, survey us and we will vote for you, for the librarians in a higher education in this type of organization. Good job. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Okay, it's 12:34. So unless gone, anything else? Again, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. The email address is there in the chat. After the session, you're going to get some follow-up. You'll get the handout that we keep mentioning with these links. And I hope that everybody has a great, you're almost there. It's almost Friday. Great rest of your week.
Thanks so much, guys.
The cheese.